The most devastating moment isn't when others stop believing in you. It's when you stop believing in yourself. When you start nodding along with the doubters, when you begin to find comfort in their limitations, when you trade your dreams for their approval. We become so skilled at rationalizing our retreat from greatness, so adept at explaining why we can't, shouldn't, or mustn't force ourselves to keep going. But what if everything they said you couldn't do was actually a test of how badly you want it? Have you ever felt the crushing weight of silence? That deafening quiet when you share your dreams and all you hear back is doubt? I see those subtle nods across the room. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? It's that moment when your heart races with excitement about your vision, but the world responds with raised eyebrows and concerned looks. Those well-meaning voices saying, be realistic, that's not practical, or worse, nothing at all. Just that heavy silence that speaks volumes. Throughout human history, every single breakthrough, every revolution, every quantum leap forward started with someone who refused to accept that silence as an answer. Someone who had all the doubts, felt all the fear, faced all the resistance, and kept going. What dream are you carrying inside that you haven't dared to speak aloud lately? What fire burns in your soul that others have tried to extinguish with their doubt? Hold on to that thought. We're going to explore it together. The most profound truth about human potential is this: your belief in yourself must be greater than anyone's doubt in you. But here's where most people get it wrong. They wait for belief to feel comfortable. They wait for confidence to show up like a welcome guest knocking at their door. They wait for permission, for validation, for someone to finally say, yes, you can do this. That waiting becomes a life sentence of unfulfilled potential. The real magic happens when you force yourself to keep going, especially when every fiber of your being wants to stop. When you take that next step, even though your knees are shaking. When you raise your voice, even though it quivers. I meet people everywhere who tell me I'm just waiting for the right time. But let me share something powerful with you. Time doesn't make things right. Action makes things right. Movement creates momentum. Courage isn't about waiting until you're not afraid. It's about moving forward with your fear riding shotgun. Think about a child learning to walk. Did you ever see a baby wait for someone to believe they could do it? Did they take a poll of the room to see who thought they were ready? No. They fell, they cried, they got up, they fell again, and they kept going. They didn't know they weren't supposed to be able to do it yet. They just knew they wanted to walk. That's the pure, untainted determination we've lost touch with. We've learned to need permission. We've learned to seek approval. We've learned to doubt our innate capacity for growth and transformation. But what if, and this is crucial, what if you decided to unlearn all of that? What if you decided that your dream doesn't require anyone else's approval? The people who doubt you aren't your enemies. They're often the ones who love you most, who want to protect you from disappointment, from failure, from pain. Their doubt comes from their own fears, their own limited beliefs, their own unfulfilled dreams. But their limitations are not your limitations. Their fears are not your fears. There's every single person who has ever achieved anything meaningful has faced doubters. Every single one. But here's what separates those who make it from those who don't. They didn't use the doubt as an excuse they used it as fuel to prove something, not to others, but to themselves. When you're forcing yourself to keep going, you're not just building success, you're building character. You're not just achieving goals, you're becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone who doesn't need external validation to know their worth. Let me share something that might surprise you. Doubt and fear are not signs that you're on the wrong path. Often, they're signs that you're exactly where you need to be. Growth happens at the edge of comfort. Change happens at the boundary of the familiar. If you're not scared, you're probably not growing. They mistake discomfort for dysfunction. They interpret fear as a stop sign when it's really a signal that they're about to break through to something extraordinary. The question isn't whether you'll face doubt. You will. The question is, what will you do when it shows up? Will you let it be the period at the end of your story? Or will you make it the comma that leads to your next chapter? Right now, someone in this room is sitting on a dream that could change lives. Maybe it's you. Maybe you've been telling yourself it's too late, too hard, too risky. Maybe you've been waiting for someone to give you permission to begin. What if the doubt you're facing isn't a wall? It's a test of your commitment, a test of your conviction, a test of how badly you want what you say you want. The world doesn't reward people for having dreams. It rewards people for having the courage to act on them despite every reason not to. It rewards those who force themselves to keep going when every external voice says stop. Think about the times in your life when you've surprised yourself. Those moments when you did something you didn't think you could do. Remember how that felt? That wasn't luck. That wasn't chance. That was you tapping into your authentic power. That was you accessing your true potential. Now imagine living from that place of power, not just in moments, but consistently. Imagine what becomes possible when you stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself authorization to be extraordinary. This isn't about positive thinking. This isn't about affirmations or vision boards. This is about the gritty, unglamorous work of showing up day after day when no one is cheering, when no one understands, when the results aren't visible yet. It's about forcing yourself to keep going when your mind is screaming for you to stop. It's about having the uncomfortable conversations, making the difficult decisions, facing the hard truths about yourself and your circumstances, and keeping going anyway. Every morning you face a choice. Not just one big choice, but a series of small choices that either move you closer to your dreams or further away. These choices might seem insignificant in the moment. Hitting snooze instead of getting up to work on your goals, scrolling through social media instead of taking action, letting one person's negative comment derail your entire day. But here's the truth that nobody talks about. These small choices are actually defining moments. They're the hinges upon which your future swings. Each time you choose comfort over growth, safety over possibility, you're not just pausing your progress. You're actively choosing to stay exactly where you are. Staying where you feel safe, it feels comfortable, it feels reasonable. The world loves reasonable people. Reasonable people don't rock the boat. They don't make others uncomfortable. They don't challenge the status quo. But has anything truly remarkable ever come from being reasonable? Right now, in this very moment, something inside you knows you're capable of more. That quiet voice that whispers to you in your moments of honest reflection. It knows the truth. It knows you're playing smaller than you could be. It knows you're settling for less than you're capable of achieving. How much longer are you willing to ignore that voice? You see, there's a cost to playing it safe. A cost to waiting for others to believe in you before you believe in yourself. And that cost isn't just measured in unrealized dreams or unfulfilled potential. It's measured in the quiet desperation of knowing you could have done more, been more, achieved more. If only you had found the courage to keep going when everyone else said stop. The people who appear to have unwavering self-belief often don't start with it. They build it choice by choice, action by action, day by day. They force themselves to keep going, not because they're certain of success, but because they're certain that stopping is not an option. Think about this. Every skill you've ever mastered, every challenge you've ever overcome, started from a place of not knowing, not being sure, not having proof that you could do it. But you did it anyway. You kept going. You forced yourself to continue even when it was hard, even when it was uncomfortable, even when you weren't sure where it would lead. That same strength is still within you. It didn't go anywhere. It's not something you lose. It's something you choose not to access because accessing it requires facing uncertainty. Facing potential failure, facing the possibility that others might be right about your limitation. But what if they're not right? What if the only thing standing between you and your dreams is your willingness to prove them wrong? Here's a powerful truth. The opinion that matters most is not the loudest voice in the room. It's the quietest voice in your heart. That voice that knows who you really are and what you're truly capable of achieving. When you start listening to that voice, something remarkable happens. The external doubts don't disappear. They just become less important. The fear doesn't go away. It just becomes fuel for your journey instead of a roadblock. You see, forcing yourself to keep going isn't about ignoring fear or doubt. It's about acknowledging them and moving forward anyway. It's about understanding that these emotions are part of the journey, not signals to stop the journey. Consider the times in your life when you've regretted not taking action. Those moments when you let fear win, when you let others' doubt become your doubt, when you chose safety over possibility. How different might your life be now if you had forced yourself to keep... Now flip that around. Think about the times when you did push through, when you did keep going despite the doubt and fear. What did those experiences teach you about yourself? What became possible because you refused to stop? The most powerful realization you can have is this: your potential is not determined by other people's beliefs about you. Their doubt may be real, but it doesn't have to be your reality. When you force yourself to keep going, you're not just moving toward a goal, you're expanding your sense of what's possible. You're rewriting the story of who you are and what you're capable of achieving. This journey isn't just about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. It's about showing yourself through consistent action and unwavering determination that you are capable of far more than you've been giving yourself credit for. The world will try to put limits on you, it will try to define you based on your past, your circumstances, your failures. But you have the power to define yourself through your persistence, your resilience, your unwillingness to accept those limitations as final. Every time you force yourself to keep going when others say stop, you're not just building success. You're building sovereignty over your own life. You're claiming your right to define your own possibilities, to set your own limits, to write your own story. And yes, it's hard. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it will be days when every fiber of your being wants to quit. But those are precisely the days when forcing yourself to keep going matters most. Because those are the days that separate the dreamers from the doers, the wishers from the achievers, the people who talk about what they want from the people who actually create it. Think about what you're really capable of, not what others think you're capable of, not what your past suggests you're capable of, but what that quiet voice inside knows you're capable of. That's your true potential. That's your real capacity for achievement. Now imagine living every day from that place of possibility instead of limitation. Imagine making decisions based on what could be rather than what has been. Imagine forcing yourself to keep going not because you're certain of success, but because you're certain that stopping is not an option. There's a moment in every journey when you have to make a fundamental choice, a choice that will define not just what you do, but who you become. That moment isn't when everything is going well, when people are cheering you on, when success seems inevitable. No, that defining moment comes when you're alone with your doubts, when the path ahead seems impossible, when every logical voice is telling you to give up. In these moments, something extraordinary happens. You discover that strength isn't about not feeling fear. It's about feeling all the fear and continuing anyway. You learn that courage isn't the absence of doubt. It's the decision to make doubt irrelevant to your actions. Let me tell you something that might change how you view your current struggles. The resistance you're facing, the doubt you're experiencing, the fear that keeps you up at night, these aren't obstacles to your success. They're essential ingredients of it. They're not trying to stop you. They're trying to show you how badly you want what you say you want. Think about water for a moment. When water meets resistance, what does it do? It doesn't stop. It doesn't give up. It finds another way. It flows around, over, or through whatever is in its path. Water doesn't break down walls by force. It breaks them down through persistent, consistent action, day after day, drop by drop. It keeps going until the path is clear. That's exactly what forcing yourself to keep going looks like. It's not about dramatic gestures or grand declarations. It's about showing up day after day, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. It's about taking one more step when every fiber of your being is screaming for rest. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't extraordinary from the start. They become extraordinary through their refusal to be stopped by ordinary obstacles. They force themselves to keep going when others would have given up long ago. But let's talk about something that often gets overlooked, the voice of doubt in your own head. That voice that questions everything you do, that reminds you of past failures, that whispers, "Who do you think you are?" in your quietest moments. That voice isn't your enemy. It's not even trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you from failure, from disappointment, from the pain of trying and not succeeding. The key is not to silence that voice, is to thank it for its concern and keep going anyway. To acknowledge the fear, embrace the doubt, and use it as fuel rather than letting it become a barrier. Every time you force yourself to keep going when others have stopped, you're not just building success, you're building character. You're not just achieving goals, you're becoming someone who doesn't need external validation to know their worth. But here's where it gets really interesting. The more you force yourself to keep going, the more you discover that what once seemed impossible becomes merely challenging. What once seemed challenging becomes your capacity for growth, for achievement, for pushing through resistance. Think about the stories you tell yourself about what you can and cannot do. Where did these stories come from? Who wrote them? More importantly, who has the power to rewrite them? You do. You have the power to rewrite every limiting story, every self-imposed boundary, every "I can't" that's been holding you back. But here's the catch. You can only rewrite these stories through action, through forcing yourself to keep going when everything and everyone, including parts of yourself, are telling you to stop. Let me share something powerful with you. The moment you decide that your commitment to your dreams is stronger than other people's doubt in them, everything changes. Not externally at first. The doubters will still doubt, the obstacles will still appear, the challenges will still arise, but internally something fundamental shifts. You stop seeking permission to pursue your dreams. You stop waiting for validation from others. You stop requiring perfect conditions before taking action. Instead, you start forcing yourself to keep going simply because that's who you've decided to be, someone who keeps going, someone who doesn't stop, someone who refuses to let external doubt determine internal worth. This isn't about being stubborn or ignoring reality. It's about understanding that reality is more flexible than most people believe. It's about recognizing that what seems impossible today becomes possible through persistent, consistent. The times in your life when you've surprised yourself, those moments when you did something you didn't think you could do. Remember how that felt? That wasn't luck. That wasn't chance. That was you tapping into your authentic power. That was you accessing your true potential. Now imagine living from that place of power, not just in moments, but consistently. Imagine what becomes possible when you stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself authorization to be extraordinary. The truth is, forcing yourself to keep going isn't about gritting your teeth and pushing through pain. It's about connecting with something deeper than temporary discomfort or external validation. It's about connecting with your own inner knowing of what's possible for your life. When you force yourself to keep going, you're not just moving toward a goal. You're expanding your sense of what's possible. You're rewriting the story of who you are and what you're capable of achieving. You're becoming someone new with every step you take. As you force yourself to keep going, you start to notice something incredible. The resistance doesn't disappear. You just get better at working with it. The doubt doesn't vanish. You just stop letting it control your actions. The fear doesn't go away. You just learn to use it as fuel instead of letting it become a barrier. Every single person who has ever achieved something remarkable has faced a moment, or many moments, when continuing seemed impossible, when the evidence suggested they should stop, when logic dictated they should give up. What set them apart wasn't talent or luck or circumstances. It was their decision to keep going when stopping seemed like the only reasonable choice. But let's talk about something that often gets overlooked in discussions about perseverance. The difference between forcing yourself to keep going and simply being stubborn. There's a crucial distinction here that can make or break your journey. Forcing yourself to keep going isn't about blindly pushing forward, regardless of feedback or consequences. It's about maintaining your commitment to growth while being willing to adjust your approach. It's about keeping your eyes on the destination while being flexible about the path you take to get there. Think about this. When you're climbing a mountain, the path rarely goes straight up. It winds. It switchbacks. Sometimes you have to go down a bit to find a better way up. But as long as you keep the summit in sight, as long as you keep moving, you're making progress even when it doesn't feel like it. This is where most people get stuck. They mistake temporary setbacks for permanent failures. They interpret the need to adjust their approach as proof that their goal is impossible. They let the opinion of others override their inner knowing of what's possible. What would you attempt if you knew that temporary setbacks were not just normal but necessary? What would you pursue if you understood that other people's doubt in your abilities has nothing to do with your actual potential? The most liberating realization you can have is this: you don't need everyone to believe in you. You don't even need most people to believe in you. You just need to believe in yourself enough to keep going when no one else does. But let's be honest, maintaining that belief isn't easy. There will be days when your own faith wavers, when your confidence shakes, when your determination feels like it's hanging by a thread. These are the moments that matter most. These are the times when forcing yourself to keep going isn't just important, it's essential. Because here's what happens when you force yourself to keep going: you build evidence. Evidence that you're stronger than you thought. Evidence that you're more capable than you believed. Evidence that your potential is greater than anyone, including yourself. Think about something you've already achieved in your life that once seemed impossible. Remember how overwhelming it seemed at first? Remember how many people doubted it could be done? Remember how many times you doubted yourself? But you kept going. And eventually, what seemed impossible became reality. That same power is within you right now. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't diminish. If anything, it's stronger, because now you have evidence that it exists. You've seen it work before. You know what it's capable of. Like, it's really interesting. The more you force yourself to keep going, the more you discover that your limits aren't where you thought they were. They're not even close. What you once considered your maximum effort becomes your new baseline. What once seemed impossible becomes merely challenging. What once seemed challenging becomes routine. This isn't about pushing yourself to exhaustion or ignoring your needs. It's about expanding your conception of what's possible. It's about refusing to let temporary discomfort become a permanent barrier. It's about understanding that growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone, not within it. Every time you force yourself to keep going when others would stop, you're not just moving towards your goals. You're becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone more resilient, someone who doesn't need external validation to know their worth. The world will try to put limits on you. It will try to define you based on your past, your circumstances, your failures, but you have the power to define yourself through your persistence, your resilience, your unwillingness to accept those limitations as final. When you force yourself to keep going, you're not just building success. You're building sovereignty over your own life. You're claiming your right to define your own possibilities, to set your own limits, to write your own story. And yes, it's hard. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, there will be days when every fiber of your being wants to quit. But those are precisely the days when forcing yourself to keep going matters most. Because those are the days that separate the dreamers from the doers, the wishers from the achievers, the people who talk about what they want from the people who actually create it. Here we are at this crucial moment together. Everything we've discussed, every insight, every truth, every challenge comes down to this: what will you do with this knowledge? How will you apply these principles to your life starting today, starting now? Because that's what this is really about. It's not about inspiration that fades when you leave this room. It's about transformation that stays with you, that becomes part of who you are, that shapes every decision you make from this moment forward. Let me share something profound with you. The greatest regrets in life come not from trying and failing, but from failing to try, from letting the fear of failure become bigger than the desire for success, from allowing other people's doubt to become your reality. Every single person who has ever achieved something meaningful started exactly where you are right now, with a dream, with doubt, with fear, with people telling them it couldn't be done. The only difference between those who achieve their dreams and those who don't isn't talent or luck or circumstances. It's their willingness to force themselves to keep going when every external voice, and many internal ones, are saying stop. But here's the beautiful truth. You don't have to feel ready to begin. You don't have to feel confident to take action. You don't have to have everything figured out to start moving forward. You just have to be willing to take the next step, and then the next, and then the next. The power to transform your life doesn't come from some external source. It doesn't come from motivation or inspiration. It comes from your decision, your commitment to keep going even when motivation fades, even when inspiration dims, even when the path. Consider that Esther was once a beginner. Every expert was once a novice. Every success story started with someone who didn't know if they could do it, but decided to try anyway. They forced themselves to keep going not because they were certain of success, but because they were certain that stopping wasn't an option. Right now, in this moment, you have a choice. You can let this be just another inspiring talk that fades from memory, or you can let it be the moment everything changed. The moment you decided that your dreams are worth fighting for. The moment you committed to forcing yourself to keep going, no matter what. Here's what happens when you make that commitment. The world doesn't immediately change, you do. Your perspective shifts. Your resilience grows. Your capacity for handling challenges expands. You start to see obstacles, not as barriers, but as opportunities to prove your commitment to your dream. Think about the story you want to tell about your life. Not just about what you achieved, but about who you became in the process. About the strength you found when you thought you had none left. About the courage you discovered when fear seemed overwhelming. About the persistence you developed when giving up seemed like the only logical choice. That story begins now. It begins with your decision to force yourself to keep going when others would stop. To keep believing when others doubt. To keep moving forward when others retreat. The doubt you're feeling isn't a sign that you're on the wrong path. It's often a sign that you're exactly where you need to be. Growth happens at the edge of comfort. Change occurs at the boundary of the familiar. If you're not scared, you're probably not growing. Your potential isn't determined by other people's beliefs about you. Their doubt may be real, but it doesn't have to be your reality. Your dreams don't require anyone else's permission. Your success doesn't need anyone else's validation. You leave this room today. Take with you this unchangeable truth. You are capable of far more than you've been giving yourself credit for. Your potential isn't limited by your past, your circumstances, or other people's opinions. It's limited only by your willingness to keep going when stopping seems easier. The path ahead won't be easy. There will be obstacles, there will be setbacks, there will be moments when giving up seems like the only sensible choice. But in those moments, remember why you started. Remember what you're capable of. Remember that forcing yourself to keep going isn't just about achieving goals. It's about becoming the person you were meant to be. The question isn't whether you'll face doubt. You will. The question is, what will you do when it shows up? Will you let it be the period at the end of your story? Or will you make it the comma that leads to your next chapter? Your journey begins now, not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, not when everyone believes in you. Now, with whatever resources you have, wherever you are, however you feel, force yourself to keep going. Not because it's easy, but because you're worth it. Not because success is guaranteed, but because giving up guarantees you'll never know what you could have achieved. The world is waiting for your light. It's waiting for your gifts. It's waiting for you to become everything you're capable of being. Keep going. Keep growing. Keep believing. Keep becoming. Your time is now.